Next up, a guy who's in demand across the globe. After leading the No Boston Olympics effort, a key player in keeping our city games-free in 2024. On the heels of Boston, Chris Dempsey's group stepped up to help out in Toronto, where they ultimately decided not to apply for the games. Then it was off to Hamburg, Germany, to talk with Olympic opposition leaders there. The public ultimately voted no. And now the world tour continues, with No Boston Olympics lending their expertise to Rome. Chris Dempsey was also recently named the Globe's co-Bostonian of the Year for 2015, along with the chief proponent of the Olympics, John Fish, and he joined me to talk about his latest efforts. And now joining me is the globe-trotting Chris Dempsey. Chris, it's great to see you.
Hey, Jim.
My understanding is when you've done these travels, that thing in Toronto and then in Budapest and then in Rome, you're not urging people to reject the Olympics. You're trying to help the no side have a voice in the debate. Is that a fair?
That's right. It's not for us to say whether the people of Rome should want the Olympics or not. What we're saying is it's important to have a discussion. What we saw here in Boston is that the more people learned about the bid, the less they liked it, because they learned that the IOC has really outrageous demands for host cities. And you want to advance that conversation in these other cities so that they know what they're signing up for.
I read you say, I want to share some of the lessons learned. What are the key 2 or 3 lessons that you did learn that you think are transferable to other potential, not potential, but bidding cities?
Sure. So one lesson is that this stuff is really expensive. The average bid is between $10 and $20 billion, and Boston 2024 was going to be just like that. The second is that these bids don't really create economic opportunity. When economists have looked at the games, they don't see that cities are better off after they hosted the games than they were before. But I think most importantly, what we learned is that the system is set up to really help the IOC. The IOC is going to make off very well with this deal, but the host city is not. It's just the structure that they have in place. And until the IOC changes that, they're going to see more and more cities drop out.
So wait, so I hear you through this list a minute after you say to me, we're not telling people to vote no. Okay, there's no economic benefit. You're worse off after than you were before, and it's really expensive. Yeah. So it sounds like, if you read between the lines, I'm putting words in your mouth. Unless you're a city like LA that's got pre-existing facilities, or like Sochi, where you have Vladimir Putin as your boss, yep, you would say, vote no, would you not?
I think it's worth a very hard look at these games and whether they make sense. If you have all the infrastructure in place truly, then maybe it makes some sense, but otherwise you're better off saying no.
So what's the difference between a city that embraces the Olympics, like London, for example? Boris Johnson, the mayor, was with us when he was trying to rally the troops here after London had their Olympics in 2012, LA, and one that rejects it. What's the difference?
Well, here's one difference. In London, the games were guaranteed at the national level. And so when they went $10 billion over budget, everyone in the UK paid a little bit to cover that overrun. Here in Massachusetts, it was going to be the city and the state that were going to have to pay for those overruns. And so the cost per citizen was going to be much, much higher.
How about LA?
Well, LA had this great experience in 1984. But what they don't remember necessarily is that they were the only bidder for the games. And so they were able to dictate the terms to the IOC and essentially get rid of all the IOC's demands. That's not going to be the case this time around. And we think that they might have some surprises in store.
Yeah, I realized I said a minute ago Budapest was one of the, it was Hamburg, where you
obviously
Hamburg
is where
that voted no. So yep, left on the table is Paris, yep, Budapest, LA, and Rome. Yep. So, and Rome is, I was going to say, one of your clients, one of the places with whom you're consulting. Yep. Have you heard anything from any of these other cities? They interested in talking to you or no?
You know, we haven't heard much from those other cities, but there's still time. The IOC doesn't make its decision until September of 2017, so we're still more than a year and a half away from that ultimate decision. And I think that you will see more conversation and debate in these cities as it goes forward.
You know, I mentioned a minute ago that you were on the cover of the Globe magazine as Bostonians of the Year. You and the man who started this Boston 2024 thing, John Fish. Obviously, he subsequently gave way, and Steve Pagliuca of Celtics fame was in charge, and Rich Davey was his, I guess, the CEO or executive director, whatever it is. We heard all along during this debate from the proponents, win or lose the bid, whether it happens or not, the process alone is going to lead to so many good things, like it allegedly did in New York City, even though I know you didn't get along very well in that debate with the guy from New York. Other than a Saturday op-ed that Davey and Pagliuca in the Globe wrote, have we heard a peep from the proponents about how they're going to continue that process that would have happened with or without the games, or no?
We haven't heard much. Now, I will say that I have a lot of respect for all three of those people you just named.
So do I, by the way.
And they're committed citizens, and I think we will see more from them in the future.
Why do you think that?
I think they're not eager to talk about this because it wasn't a great experience. When it came out of the box in January of 2015, I think it caught them by surprise that the public was really not on board and that they needed to do more convincing. And they never made a compelling case. And so I think they want to move on. And that's their prerogative. But I do think that they are committed people, and we're going to see more of them in the future.
So getting back to the primary theme again, your belief is that you have the ability to help people who want to say no to something that has negatives for their community as well as plus, and then that the voters or the people decide.
Yep.
Were the same rules apply to General Electric? There are a number of people who are concerned. Well, there are a lot of people who are thrilled about the jobs and the message it sends. The flip side is they don't pay federal taxes very much. They don't pay state taxes very much. They're getting at least $125 million from the city and the state, maybe another $100 million for that bridge. Would the same rules apply?
Absolutely. I think we need to see both sides of the ledger there. There are clearly some benefits to having GE in town, and it's an exciting moment for the city to have a big corporation sort of moving in and planting its flag here in Massachusetts. But we don't yet know the full story of sort of what promises were made. It's unfortunate that that was done behind closed doors, actually kind of similar to the Olympic process. But I will say that there is no sort of unlimited risk associated with GE in the way there was with the Olympics. Fundamentally, the IOC was looking for that blank check. And GE, they're looking for benefits as any company would moving here, but it's not sort of an unlimited liability.
So when #MakeGEPay calls you on the phone and says, I want to meet, do you say yes?
We say yes to anyone that wants to talk. Look,
including me.
Absolutely. It's part of the conversation.
Chris, it's great to see you. Thanks so
Jim.
much. We recorded that conversation with Chris last night, and shortly after, the full agreement between the state, city, and GE was made public. In response to that, Chris sent us a statement that says, quote, while it's still too early to know if this deal will turn out to be a good one for Massachusetts taxpayers, no matter how it shakes out, it's a much better deal than what Boston 2024 and the IOC were offering.